The morning sun shone softly over the grand palace, spreading a warm golden glow across its stone walls. Tourists from many different countries were already arriving at the large open courtyard in front of the palace gates. Some came alone with small backpacks and cameras hanging from their necks, while others arrived in big, cheerful groups, talking loudly in excitement. Everyone shared the same goal: to catch a glimpse of the famous royal guards who stood outside the palace all day, still and silent like statues. The guards were known for their perfect discipline and their ability to stay calm no matter what happened around them. And this made visitors even more curious. Among the new arrivals was a lively group of 5 friends who had planned this visit for months. They had traveled from far away and were eager to experience everything they had seen on travel videos and social media. For them, this moment felt like the highlight of their trip. As they walked through the crowd, they looked around with wide eyes, amazed by the size of the palace and the number of tourists who were just as excited as they were. The air was filled with laughter, the clicking of cameras, and the sound of many languages blending into one busy, joyful noise. The friends stopped near the front area, where they knew the guards would soon appear for their shift. They looked around at the people nearby. A family with 2 young children stood close by. The kids were jumping up and down, eager to see the guards in their tall hats and bright uniforms. An older couple held hands while reading from a small guidebook about the history of the palace. A group of students tried to record everything on their phones, making sure not to miss a single detail. Everyone seemed full of energy, and the lively atmosphere made the friends feel even more excited. As they settled in, they began noticing small things happening around the courtyard. A little girl holding an ice cream cone pointed at the gate with shining eyes. A street artist nearby sketched quick drawings of the palace, hoping tourists would buy one. A kind-looking police officer walked through the crowd, answering questions from visitors about where to stand and what time the guard would arrive. There was so much movement and activity that it was hard for the group to know where to look first. One of the friends, a young man named Samir, pulled out his phone and started recording. "This is going to be great," he said, smiling widely. "I can't wait to see the guards. I heard they don't laugh, don't smile, and don't move even a little." His friend Rena nodded, saying she had watched many videos of people trying to make the guards smile. She found some of the attempts funny, but she also knew it was important to be respectful. "We should just watch quietly," she said, though she was clearly excited too. But even with this intention, the thrill of the moment made everyone feel a bit playful. The palace felt like a place full of history and stories, and the guards were a part of that. The group wasn't here to cause trouble. They simply wanted to see something special and enjoy the magic of being in a place known around the world. They stood close together, adjusting their jackets, fixing their hair, and checking their phones one last time before the big moment. As they waited, the group watched more tourists join the crowd. A man with a large camera set up his tripod carefully, trying to get the perfect angle for a photo. A pair of teenagers practiced posing, planning what they would do once the guards arrived. A woman with a bright red hat shared a snack with her friend and pointed at the palace windows, wondering which rooms were used by the royal family. All these small moments mixed together to create a bright and friendly atmosphere. Suddenly, a soft rustling went through the crowd. People shifted their weight and leaned forward. Someone whispered that the guards would appear any moment now. This made the group straighten up and prepare their phones. Their hearts beat a little faster, not out of fear but out of excitement for witnessing something new and different. It felt almost like waiting for the beginning of a show, except this wasn't a show. It was a real tradition, carried out by real people who had trained for years. In the distance, the friends could hear faint footsteps, steady and rhythmic. The sound came closer, echoing lightly across the courtyard. It created a wave of attention as more tourists turned their heads toward the gate. Even the children grew quiet, sensing that something important was happening. Samir lifted his phone again, but slowly, wanting to make sure he didn't block anyone's view. Rena held her breath. Without realizing it, another friend, Mira, placed a gentle hand on her chest, smiling in awe, and then the guards appeared. The royal guards marched out from the side entrance, their movements perfectly timed. Their tall hats made them look taller, and their polished boots shone under the sunlight. The friends felt a sudden mix of admiration and wonder. They had seen pictures of the guards before, but seeing them in person was completely different. The guards' uniforms looked brighter, their expressions firmer, and their discipline more impressive than anything they had imagined. The guards continued their march, every step landing at the same moment. The crowd was completely silent now, except for the soft sound of cameras recording. The friends watched in amazement as the guards reached their positions and stopped smoothly, as if their bodies were guided by invisible strings of perfection. Their shoulders were straight, and their faces showed no sign of distraction. It was almost hard to believe they were real people and not finely crafted statues. The group stood in silence for a moment, just taking in the sight. The guards' presence added a sense of calm and dignity to the entire courtyard. Even the excited tourists seemed to feel the importance of the moment. A few whispered softly, while others simply watched with wide eyes. The children held their parents' hands, looking up at the guards with pure admiration. The students with phones kept recording but moved gently, careful not to disturb anyone. The friends felt a new wave of excitement wash over them. They knew that many tourists tried fun poses or gestures to get a reaction from the guards. They didn't plan to do anything rude or disrespectful, but they did feel a playful curiosity. After all, the guards were famous for staying serious no matter what happened around them. It was natural for people to wonder if they ever reacted. Still, the group reminded each other to stay polite. They understood that the guards were performing an important duty and deserved respect. As the minutes passed, the courtyard settled into a peaceful but eager atmosphere. Tourists slowly moved into better positions for photographs. Parents lifted their children so they could see clearly. Pilgrims, travelers, and locals all blended into a gentle hum of anticipation. The palace behind the guards looked grand and silent, its windows reflecting the soft morning light. Everything about the scene felt almost magical, as if time had slowed down for everyone gathered there. The friends felt lucky to be part of this moment. They exchanged smiles, whispered about how amazing everything looked, and took a few careful photos. They didn't want to miss anything. It felt like the beginning of a memorable story, one they would talk about for years. And in that bright courtyard, surrounded by the excited whispers of hundreds of visitors, the story of their day with the royal guards was just beginning. The guards had taken their positions, and the courtyard slowly settled into a calmer rhythm. People still whispered, cameras still clicked, and children still pointed with excitement. But everything felt a little quieter now, as if the appearance of the guards brought a gentle order to the space. The group of 5 friends stood together, still amazed by how still and serious the guards looked. Their bright uniforms and tall hats made them look almost unreal, like characters in a storybook. Even though the friends had reminded each other to stay respectful, there was still a natural curiosity bubbling inside them. Many tourists had always wondered what it would take to get a small smile or reaction from a guard. It was something everyone talked about online and in travel videos, and now that the friends were standing here in person, they felt a playful urge to see for themselves. A few steps away, a tourist couple tried their own funny poses first. The woman stood very close to the guard while still keeping a safe distance, and did a dramatic pose with her arms stretched out, pretending to be a royal character. Her partner snapped several photos of her. The woman then made a silly face, hoping the guard would look at her. But of course, he didn't move even a little. His expression remained calm and focused, staring straight ahead. This made the couple laugh quietly, and the friends smiled too. Watching others try harmless, playful things encouraged them even more. They weren't trying to disturb anyone. They just wanted to enjoy the moment like everyone else. There was something magical about how the guards stood there, completely steady, while the whole world moved and laughed around them. Samir was the first one who stepped forward from the group. He didn't want to cause trouble, so he moved carefully. Keeping a polite distance from the guard, he stood a few feet away and lifted his phone to take a selfie. At first, he smiled normally, but then he tried something a bit more dramatic. He widened his eyes, puffed his cheeks, and pretended to be surprised, as if the guard had suddenly spoken to him. It was harmless and funny, and the friends behind him tried not to laugh too loudly. The guard, of course, stayed perfectly still. Seeing this made the group giggle, and some tourists nearby also smiled. There was something very charming about watching people try to be creative in their attempts, even though everyone already knew the guards wouldn't react. It was the harmless fun of trying the playful challenge that made the moment enjoyable. Next, their friend Rena stepped forward. She was shy by nature, but she still wanted a memorable photo. She stood near the guard, kept her hands folded politely, and gave a soft smile to the camera. Then, she slowly leaned a tiny bit closer, not close enough to invade personal space, but just enough to make the photo feel fun and unique. Her friends encouraged her with soft whispers, but the guard didn't blink or shift his eyes. His calmness seemed almost magical. "It's like he's not human," one of the nearby kids whispered, eyes wide. His mother quickly corrected him, explaining softly that the guards were very well trained and took their roles seriously. This made the children even more amazed. The friends noticed the small family watching, and they smiled at them. Mira waved softly at the kids, and they giggled back. Moments like this made the whole experience feel light, warm, and friendly. It wasn't just about the guards, it was about everyone enjoying a shared moment of wonder. Then came the turn of their friend Arif, who was the funniest one in the group. He often made jokes and lightened the mood wherever he went. But today, he knew he had to be respectful. So instead of making loud jokes or doing something inappropriate, he decided to do a silent, dramatic pose. He pretended to tip an imaginary hat to the guard and then made a slow, over-the-top bow, as if greeting royalty. Even though he did it quietly, a few tourists around smiled or covered their mouths to stop from laughing. His acting was gentle and polite but still very funny. The friends clapped softly, amused by Arif's creativity. The guard, naturally, did not even glance in his direction. At this point, the friends were having fun just watching each other. They weren't trying to bother the guard or annoy anyone, they were simply enjoying the unique atmosphere. Everyone around them seemed to be doing similar things anyway. The courtyard was full of playful energy, and yet it all stayed gentle and respectful. The last member of the group, a calm and thoughtful girl named Lena, wasn't planning to do anything dramatic. She simply wanted a nice photo to remember the moment. She approached the guard slowly, stood at a safe distance, and smiled softly. She didn't try anything funny. Just being near the guard felt special to her. Her friends captured the moment, and she stepped back with a happy expression. But just when the group thought they were done, something unexpected happened. Not dramatic, not dangerous, just lightly surprising. An elderly tourist wearing a big floppy sun hat walked up to the guard, holding her map. She wasn't trying to make him react. She simply seemed a little confused about where she was, and didn't notice how close she was standing to the guard. She tried to look at the map, peeked up at the guard, and then back at the map again, as if expecting him to help her find directions. Of course, the guard did not move, so the woman looked around with a puzzled expression. A nearby palace staff member quickly noticed her confusion and gently approached to offer help. The elderly lady smiled gratefully and walked away after thanking the staff member. The friends found the moment sweet and slightly amusing. It reminded them that not everyone came here to try funny things. Some people were simply curious or maybe a little lost. Moments like these added charm to the whole experience. As the friends stepped back to join the crowd again, they watched other tourists take their turns. A group of teenagers tried synchronized poses. A father took photos of his son standing proudly near the guard, and a grandmother asked her family to capture her smiling beside the guard for a postcard she planned to send back home. No one was trying to disturb the guards, just enjoying being near something historic and admirable. The friends talked quietly among themselves, sharing their thoughts. "He didn't blink once," Samir said, still amazed. "I think they are trained to stay still like that," Mira replied gently. "I wonder how long they have to stand like this," Arif added. Rena nodded thoughtfully. "It must be difficult, but they look so confident." Their curiosity grew deeper, not in a playful way anymore, but in a more respectful, interested way. They weren't just tourists having fun. They had begun to appreciate the discipline and dedication behind the role of the royal guards. Nearby, a palace security officer walked by, giving friendly reminders to people not to cross certain lines or touch the guards. The officer spoke politely and calmly, and everyone listened. The atmosphere remained cheerful and orderly, with everyone enjoying the experience together. The sun climbed a little higher in the sky, casting brighter light over the courtyard. The guards continued standing firmly, their boots reflecting the sunlight. People admired their stillness, and the friends began to understand that there was something beautiful about their discipline. It wasn't just about being serious, it was about honoring a long tradition. The group decided to step back for a moment to let new tourists take photos. They found a spot shaded by a stone wall and drank some water while watching everything from a small distance. Even from there, the guards looked impressive. The friends talked about how special this experience felt. It wasn't just another tourist attraction. It was something meaningful. Something that made them think about history, dedication, and the effort people put into their duties. As they chatted, they didn't realize that the day was about to take another interesting turn, something gentle but surprising, something that would make their understanding of the guards deeper than before. And without knowing it, they were stepping closer to the next moment of their story. The friends had moved to a shaded corner of the courtyard to rest and watch the scene from a distance. By now, they felt more relaxed, but their excitement was still alive. They had enjoyed taking photos near the guards and watching other tourists do the same. Everything felt peaceful, lively, and full of cheerful energy. The guards continued to stand firm, looking calm and confident, and the tourists respected their space. As the group chatted softly, something small and unexpected suddenly caught their attention. It wasn't loud or dramatic, it was just a simple moment that slowly unfolded before their eyes. A gentle breeze passed through the courtyard, lifting loose papers and blowing dust lightly across the stone ground. In the middle of this soft wind, a young tourist girl with long brown hair and a colorful scarf stepped forward near a guard. She was holding an ice cream cone in one hand and wearing sunglasses that kept slipping down her nose. She seemed joyful and carefree, laughing with her friends while taking photos. But as she laughed and turned around, her scarf slipped off her shoulder and floated to the ground. She didn't notice it at first. She kept talking, still smiling. While the scarf danced in the wind, it slowly drifted closer and closer to the guard's feet. The friends noticed it immediately. They looked at each other with curious eyes, wondering what would happen if the scarf reached the guard's boots. They knew the guards couldn't move unless required to. But surely they couldn't ignore something caught at their feet. The scarf finally brushed lightly against the guard's shoe. The tourists around gasped quietly, not in fear but in surprise. The girl turned around just in time to see her scarf touching the guard's boot. Her eyes widened, and she quickly took a step forward, but she stopped herself before getting too close. She looked embarrassed, covering her mouth softly with her hand. The friends held their breath not because anything serious was happening, but because this gentle moment suddenly felt important. How would the guard respond? And then, something very subtle happened. The guard didn't move his upper body at all. His face stayed calm and straight, like always. But after a brief pause, another guard from a nearby position stepped forward. With slow, steady movements, he walked with the same perfect rhythm and confidence as before. Every step was controlled and graceful, as if rehearsed many times. The tourists watched quietly, impressed by the guard's neat actions. The second guard reached the scarf, paused for a moment, and then used a gentle, precise motion of his foot to slide the scarf away from the standing guard. He pushed it far enough so that it was no longer touching him but still handled it without stepping out of line or losing his position. Everyone around admired the simple, controlled movement. It wasn't dramatic, but it felt meaningful. It showed how carefully the guards followed their duties, how they responded when needed, while maintaining their calm posture. The girl quickly picked up her scarf, blushing but grateful. She whispered a soft, "Thank you," even though she knew the guard wouldn't reply. She then stepped back quietly, joining her group again. Her friends comforted her, telling her it wasn't a big deal, and they all shared a light laugh. The group of 5 friends felt impressed. They had known the guards were disciplined, but witnessing this tiny moment made them understand it more deeply. It wasn't just strict rules, it was smooth professionalism, a kind of calm strength. Mira leaned closer to the group and whispered, "Did you see how he moved?" "It was so controlled." Arif nodded. "It felt like watching a scene from a movie, but real," Samir added. "And he didn't look annoyed or anything, just calm." The friends smiled warmly. This small incident made them appreciate the guards even more. It wasn't the kind of reaction tourists often hope to see, like a smile or a laugh, but it was better. It was a glimpse of real discipline. Just when everyone thought the moment had passed, another small event followed. A young boy, maybe 6 years old, was walking with his father. The boy held a small toy plane in his hand. He ran around playfully, pretending the plane could fly. The father kept telling him gently not to run too fast. And the boy nodded each time, only to run again a moment later. As he waved his tiny plane around, he tripped over his own shoelace. Nothing harmful happened. He didn't fall hard or get hurt. He simply landed on his hands with a soft thud, but the sudden motion made his toy plane slip from his hand. It slid across the ground and stopped near the guard's foot. The boy instantly sat up, looking worried about his toy. But he remained still, remembering that he shouldn't get too close to the guard. His father walked up behind him and put a reassuring hand on his shoulder. The courtyard grew quiet again, not because of fear, but because everyone wondered how the moment would unfold. The same guard who had moved the scarf a few moments earlier stepped forward again with that same smooth, respectful movement. He reached the toy plane, paused for a second, and then gently nudged it forward with the side of his boot, pushing it toward the boy. The boy's eyes lit up with delight. He held the toy close to his chest, smiling shyly. The father gave a thankful nod, even though he knew the guard would not respond. The kindness of the gesture, even without words, felt warm and respectful. The friends smiled too. These moments made them see another side of the guards, not just strict, not just serious, but quietly helpful and aware. As the courtyard settled back into its usual calm and cheerful energy, the friends looked around at the other tourists. Many had soft smiles on their faces. The moments they had just witnessed were small, but they carried something gentle and heartfelt. Everyone appreciated how smoothly the guards handled little incidents without breaking their discipline. The group found themselves talking more seriously about the guards now. Not in a heavy way, but in a thoughtful, curious way. They must train for years to learn how to handle situations like that, Lena said thoughtfully. And they stay so calm, Rena added, even when something unexpected happens. Arif rubbed his chin playfully. I wonder if they ever smile when no one is looking. The friends laughed softly at his comment. Even though they were joking, they also respected the guards more now. The real beauty wasn't in getting the guards to react, it was in watching them remain calm and graceful, no matter what happened around them. A group of tourists nearby were quietly discussing the same moments, expressing admiration. Some recalled similar stories they had heard about the guards helping people politely, without ever speaking. The atmosphere felt warm with respect and curiosity. As the friends continued watching, the sunlight shifted again, making the guards' uniforms gleam. A pigeon landed near one guard, but flew away when it realized the man wouldn't move. A toddler waved at a guard, even though she didn't expect a reply. A couple took photos, holding hands in front of the palace. Everything felt peaceful, almost like a beautifully choreographed moment of everyday life. The friends realized that the unexpected reactions weren't reactions at all, they were simply gentle, small responses carried out with careful discipline. That made them even more memorable. They didn't know it yet, but this peaceful admiration would soon lead them into a deeper understanding of what the guards truly represented and why tourists from around the world came here, hoping to experience moments just like these. And slowly, without rushing, the story moved toward its next meaningful moment. The courtyard had grown even busier as the day went on. New groups of tourists arrived, and some of the earlier visitors began to leave with happy smiles, carrying memories in the form of photos and little souvenirs. The guards remained calm and steady, keeping their positions as if time moved differently for them. The friends stayed near the shade, still thinking about the small, meaningful moments they had witnessed. The scarf, the toy plane, and the peaceful way the guards had handled everything. They were still chatting quietly when a gentle voice spoke from behind them. "Hello there. Are you all enjoying your visit?" The friends turned around and saw a palace security officer standing a few steps away. He was friendly-looking, dressed neatly, and carried a warm, patient expression. His tone was polite and calm, the kind of voice that instantly made people feel comfortable. It was clear that his job wasn't only to maintain order, but also to help visitors understand the traditions of the place. "Yes, very much," Mira replied with a bright smile. "It's our first time here." "That's lovely to hear," the officer said with a nod. He wasn't strict or stern. Instead, he spoke like someone who genuinely cared about sharing the beauty of the palace with others. The friends straightened their posture a bit, curious to hear more. They had so many questions in their minds about the guards, their training, their discipline, but they hadn't known who to ask until now. The officer looked around, making sure everything in the courtyard was calm, and then turned back to them. "I noticed your group earlier," he said kindly. "You were enjoying your time near the guards. That's perfectly fine, as long as everyone stays respectful." Samir nodded quickly. "We made sure not to get too close or cause any trouble." "Oh, don't worry," the officer reassured with a soft chuckle. "You were very polite." Many visitors try to make the guards smile or react. Some attempts are fun, some a little too enthusiastic. But most people don't mean any harm. It's part of the curiosity. Arif grinned sheepishly. "To be honest, we were curious too." "That's completely natural," the officer said. Then his expression softened a bit, and he shifted into a more thoughtful tone. "But there is a reason the guards behave the way they do, and many tourists don't fully understand it. Would you like to know more? I can explain if you're interested." The friends exchanged excited looks. This was exactly the kind of insight they hoped for. "Yes, please," Rena said cheerfully. The officer nodded and began speaking slowly so everyone could follow easily. "The royal guards are not just standing here for show. Their job is part of a long tradition that goes back many years. They represent the history of the palace and the values of service and discipline. Their stillness is not just a rule, it is a symbol." The friends listened with full attention. Even the crowd noises seemed quieter as they focused on his words. "They train for a very long time to learn how to stay calm," he continued. "Not just physically still but mentally steady. It's not easy. Imagine standing in one place while hundreds of people take photos, talk, laugh, or sometimes try to make you react. It takes a lot of focus." Lena nodded slowly, understanding more deeply than before. "It must be really hard." "It can be," the officer agreed kindly. "But they practice every day, learning to control their breathing, their posture, and their thoughts. They learn to stay relaxed inside even when everything outside is busy or unpredictable." "That explains a lot," Mira said softly. "They looked so peaceful even when something unexpected happened." "Yes," the officer said, smiling slightly. "They are trained to respond only when necessary. Like earlier, when the scarf touched the guard's foot, or when the little boy's toy rolled over. They are taught exactly what to do in such moments. They move only in ways that stay respectful and controlled." The friends remembered the smooth motions of the guard, how graceful and effortless they looked. "People often think the guards don't notice anything," the officer continued. "But they notice a lot. They must be aware of everything happening around them, every step, every sound, every movement. Their stillness doesn't mean they are disconnected. It means they are focused." "That's amazing," said Samir, truly impressed. The officer smiled warmly at their reactions. "It is. And there is another important thing. Their stillness is a way of honoring their duty. They carry a sense of pride in representing the palace and its history. When they stand straight, silent, and confident, they show respect for something bigger than themselves." The friends felt a soft wave of admiration. Everything the officer said made the guards seem even more admirable. They weren't just motionless figures, they were dedicated individuals carrying centuries-old traditions with patience and grace. The officer looked around again, making sure the courtyard remained peaceful. Then he continued with a gentle tone. Many tourists don't realize this. They see the guards and think it's just for entertainment. They don't understand how hard the guards work or how meaningful their role is. That's why we, as staff, try to gently guide people so everyone can enjoy the experience respectfully. Arif raised a curious hand. Do the guards ever smile? Maybe when they're off duty? The officer chuckled softly. Of course. Once their shift is over, they are just like anyone else. They talk, laugh, and relax. But when they are on duty, they completely commit to their role. It's a skill switching from regular life to complete discipline. The friends smiled at the thought of the guards laughing together during breaks. It made them feel more connected to them, knowing they were real people, with real lives behind their serious expressions. The officer took a calm breath and added, "You all behaved very respectfully today. That is important." When tourists understand the meaning behind the tradition, it becomes a wonderful experience for everyone. We learned a lot, Rina said gratefully. We didn't know how special the role really was. I'm glad to hear that, the officer replied warmly. And if you ever return, you'll appreciate it even more. A soft breeze blew again, carrying the sounds of clicking cameras and cheerful conversations across the courtyard. Families posed for photos, children pointed excitedly, and groups laughed together while making memories. Yet the atmosphere felt calmer than before, as if the friends now saw everything with new understanding. The officer checked his watch and said gently, I need to continue my round now, but I'm happy I could share this with you. Thank you so much, the group said almost in unison. Their gratitude was genuine. This explanation had changed their entire perspective. Before leaving, the officer added one final thought, spoken with warmth and wisdom. The beauty of the guards is not in whether they react, it's in the way they don't. Their silence tells a story, and their stillness is a reminder of honor. When people respect that, the experience becomes even more meaningful. The friends nodded, fully understanding his words. After he walked away, they stood together quietly for a moment, each absorbing everything he had said. They looked at the guards again, not with curiosity this time, but with respect. They saw not just uniforms, but dedication, not just stillness, but purpose. The courtyard felt different now, as if they were seeing it through new eyes. And they didn't feel tempted anymore to try funny poses or dramatic gestures. They simply wanted to watch, appreciate, and honor the moment. Little did they know, they were about to witness something even more beautiful, a ceremony that would bring everything the officer explained to life right before their eyes. And their story continued, becoming even more meaningful with each passing minute. The friends stood together in the courtyard, still thinking about everything the officer had explained to them. The air felt different now, softer and calmer, as if the whole place carried a deeper meaning. They looked at the guards again, noticing the stillness in a fresh way. Each guard stood tall, silent, and perfectly focused. It wasn't just a performance, it was something honorable. And now, the friends understood the beauty of it. As they continued to watch quietly, they noticed a gentle stir in the crowd. People started shifting positions, moving closer to the center area. Some tourists whispered to each other excitedly, others adjusted their cameras. Parents lifted their children a little higher. It felt as though everyone sensed something was about to begin. Mira leaned forward slightly. What's happening? She asked in a soft, curious voice. I think something special is coming, Rina replied, her eyes scanning the courtyard. A moment later, a soft, steady sound began to drift through the air. It wasn't loud, but it was clear, rhythmic footsteps. Perfectly in sync, the sound echoed lightly against the palace walls, creating a sense of order and anticipation. Tourists around the courtyard grew quieter as the footsteps came closer. Then, from the palace side entrance, a new group of guards appeared. They marched in a straight, flawless line. Each step landed at the exact same moment, creating a rhythm that felt almost musical. Their uniforms shone in the sunlight, and their tall hats made them look taller and even more impressive. Their faces remained calm, focused, and full of purpose. The friends stared in awe, their eyes widening with admiration. They had seen photos of the changing of the guard before, but seeing it in person was completely different. It felt grand. It felt important. It felt like history coming to life. The new guards moved closer to the standing guards with perfect coordination. The entire courtyard seemed to hold its breath. Even the smallest children became quiet, watching the scene with wide, curious eyes. The atmosphere was filled with a special kind of stillness, not silent, but respectful. The marching guards came to a stop with one final, unified step. The sound echoed softly before fading into the morning air. Then, with sharp, clean movements, they turned and aligned themselves perfectly with the guards already on duty. Every motion felt practiced yet graceful, like a dance created over centuries. The friends listened closely as the leader of the new group gave a clear command. It wasn't loud enough to startle anyone, but it carried confidence and authority. The guards responded instantly, their movements tight and exact. It was a beautiful display of discipline. Samir whispered, "Wow, this is amazing." "It's like watching something very old and very important," Lena added quietly. The ceremony continued with a series of practice steps. The guards exchanged positions smoothly, one group taking over the duty while the other prepared to leave. Every movement happened at the same moment, no hesitation, no confusion, no break in rhythm. It was so precise that the friends couldn't look away. As the new guards settled into their positions, the ones who had been standing for hours prepared to march away. But before leaving, they went through one last synchronized motion. Raising their hands in a respectful gesture, they did it together, showing unity and commitment without saying a single word. The friends felt goosebumps running across their arms. They now understood exactly what the security officer meant. The beauty wasn't in getting the guards to smile or lose focus. The beauty was in watching them stay true to their tradition, no matter what happened around them. It was in their dedication, their discipline, and their quiet strength. When the ceremony reached its final steps, the group of guards who had finished their shift began marching out of the courtyard. Their boots made a steady, neat sound as they walked away in a straight line. The tourists watched with admiration. Some took photos, others recorded videos, and many simply watched with respect. Once the departing guards disappeared behind the palace entrance, the courtyard slowly returned to its usual lively energy. People began talking again, capturing the last few photos and enjoying the gentle warmth of the day. But something about the atmosphere felt different now, calmer, deeper, more meaningful. The friends stood quietly for a moment, each processing the scene in their own way. Then Arif spoke up with a quiet smile. "I feel like we just saw something really special." "We definitely did," Mira agreed. "It felt like a story from history." Samir nodded. "And now I understand why everyone respects the guards so much," Rina added softly. "It's not about making them smile. It's about appreciating what they stand for." Lena looked around the courtyard, then back at the guards still standing in their new positions. "I'm glad we learned the right way to see it." The friends walked a little closer again, not to take funny photos this time, but simply to admire the moment. They stood at a respectful distance, watching the guards as the sunlight glowed on their uniforms. People around them seemed more mindful too, stepping carefully, speaking gently, and treating the place with quiet respect. A small girl walked by holding her father's hand and waved shyly at the guard. Her father smiled and whispered something into her ear. The girl nodded with bright eyes and continued walking, still glancing back with admiration. Nearby, a group of older tourists discussed how beautifully the ceremony was done. Some spoke about similar traditions in their own countries. Others compared this experience to what they had seen in videos. But everyone agreed on one thing: the ceremony felt much grander in person. The friends slowly stepped away from the main area, making room for more visitors to enjoy the view. They found a peaceful spot near a stone bench and sat down together. They talked about everything: their favorite moments of the day, the surprises they hadn't expected, and the lessons they felt they had learned. "It's funny," Samir said. We came here excited to see if we could get a reaction from the guards. But what we got was way better, Mira said with a gentle smile. We got to understand the meaning behind everything, Rena added. And that's going to stay with us for a long time, Lena said softly. Arif stretched his arms and laughed lightly. Now I feel like telling everyone back home the full story. No, they all laughed. But it wasn't a loud, careless laugh. It was warm and full of appreciation. After resting for a while, the group stood up again and took one last slow walk through the courtyard. They didn't rush. They didn't take silly photos. They simply enjoyed the peaceful feeling of the place one more time. The palace looked beautiful in the sunlight. And the guards stood tall, silently guarding the gate. The tourists around them smiled, whispered politely, and admired the scene with gentle curiosity. Before leaving, the friends paused and looked back one final time at the guards. They felt grateful, not just for the photos, but for the experience. They had come here with excitement and curiosity, and they were leaving with respect and understanding. The moment felt complete. As they walked away from the palace, the friends carried with them a story that would stay in their hearts forever, one filled with kindness, patience, discipline, and the quiet beauty of tradition. It wasn't a story of trying to charm the guards anymore. It was a story of learning to appreciate what they represent, and that made their journey truly unforgettable.